There's a chunk of our culture here. As our culture evolves, there's a lot of the values of the past that help us survive. In the past, you really had to use your initiative to survive. And these houses were built with a lot of initiative and hard work. You know what? If you take care of them properly, you do it once properly, they can last for many, many decades.
To my mind, what really sets TMA apart from the others, one comes to mind first, which is the place. It has been the home of indigenous Sonoran Desert people for thousands of years. It's a convergence of art, culture, history, and heritage.
I first assessed the condition of the Casa Cordova for Tucson Museum of Art in 1996, which would be nearly 30 years ago. And off and on, every few years, I get called back to give some more advice on what needs to be done. And indeed, actually back in '98, Eric and I had done a stabilization and refinishing of the exterior, which lasted about 25 years. Walking into that building is truly stepping back in time. You're walking into a space that's been there for 170 years, into spaces where people long gone once lived and worked, and you have a connection with the past, which is something that you can't accomplish that any other way other than preserving historic buildings.
William Wild, whose firm I was part of, had designed a really nice museum building, as he said he would. Then, as we finished the working drawings, ready to go out to bid for construction, we made a final presentation to the board, and it turned out that day the board had learned that the west wing of the Cordova House was the oldest standing structure in Tucson.
The primary purpose of the art museum is not restoring old buildings. It's developing the art and presenting it. But I think the museum has accepted their role as stewards of these historic buildings and the spaces that they create, because in the end, architecture is about the creation of space. And what do you do with that space? And I think using it for exhibits and interpretation is a perfect way to put these old buildings back into use in a meaningful way. And I think TMA is doing a terrific job of that.
All the years that I spent being the curator of the historic houses to turn buildings that surround this block into something useful for the museum, to find out their stories, the stories of each of the buildings over these years. So the Fish House, which was going to be the Western Museum, and the Hiram Stevens House was going to be a restaurant that would serve lunch so that the patrons had a place to go for lunch. And the Corbett House was going to be a period museum. And the Leonardo Romero House was already the center for the crafts and ceramics, and it was going to be preserved. And with the Plaza of the Pioneers and all of that coming together, creating a whole block of interesting places to visit besides just the gallery.